Before we begin, pause for just 1 second. If you love dark history, hidden truths, and the real stories behind the rise and fall of powerful empires, hit the like button right now and subscribe to this channel, because the truth you're about to hear was never meant to survive time. Empires that ruled millions, commanded unstoppable armies, and controlled unimaginable wealth didn't fall because of fate or bad luck. They fell because of mistakes, real, human mistakes, and those same mistakes are still being repeated today. The fall of history's greatest empires was never sudden, and it was never accidental. It always began quietly, hidden beneath layers of success, pride, and unchecked power. At their peak, empires appeared invincible. Their cities were rich, their armies feared, their rulers worshipped almost like gods. But power has a dangerous side effect. It blinds those who hold it. One of the most common and deadly reasons empires fell was internal decay. When leaders stopped serving their people and started serving themselves, collapse became inevitable. Corruption spread slowly at first, like a disease with no visible symptoms. Officials took bribes, generals became loyal to gold instead of the state, and laws were enforced only for the weak. In the Roman Empire, corruption hollowed out the system from the inside. Senators sold influence, tax collectors robbed citizens, and emperors lived in extreme luxury while the common people starved. Rome didn't fall because barbarians were strong. Rome fell because it was already weak. The armies that once defended the empire were filled with mercenaries who had no loyalty to Rome itself. When the moment of real danger came, there was nothing left worth protecting. Another fatal factor was economic collapse. Great empires required massive resources to function: armies, infrastructure, palaces, and endless wars. When spending exceeded production, governments began to debase their currency, raise taxes, and exploit their own people. This created inflation, poverty, and social unrest. In ancient Rome, silver coins were slowly mixed with cheaper metals until money lost its value. Prices exploded, trade collapsed, and trust in the system vanished. Empires also fell because of overexpansion. Conquering land was easy compared to ruling it. The larger an empire became, the harder it was to control. Communication slowed, borders stretched thin, and enemies multiplied. The Persian Empire expanded across 3 continents, but its vast size became its weakness. Rebellions erupted far from the capital, and response times were too slow to stop them. Meanwhile, ambitious generals turned against their own rulers. Empires were also destroyed by moral decay. When societies abandoned discipline, unity, and responsibility, chaos followed. In the later stages of many empires, public service lost its honor, military service became a burden, and entertainment replaced purpose. The people no longer believed in the empire's mission. Without belief, even the strongest walls mean nothing. History shows again and again that an empire collapses long before its capital is invaded. The real fall begins in the mind. When greed replaces duty, comfort replaces courage, and power replaces wisdom. Another major reason history's greatest empires fell was leadership failure. Empires rose under strong, visionary leaders, but they often collapsed under weak, paranoid, or cruel rulers. Power attracts ambition, but it also attracts fear. Many emperors and kings became obsessed with protecting their throne rather than protecting their people. They executed rivals, silenced advisors, and surrounded themselves with flatterers instead of truth-tellers. This isolation led to disastrous decisions. In the Roman Empire, emperors like Caligula and Commodus ruled through terror and madness, destroying public trust and stability. In China, entire dynasties collapsed because emperors ignored warnings, dismissed capable officials, and trusted corrupt courtiers. Another silent killer was social inequality. As empires grew richer, wealth became concentrated in the hands of a few elites. The poor paid the price through heavy taxes, forced labor, and military conscription. When the gap between rich and poor became unbearable, rebellion was only a matter of time. The French monarchy collapsed under this exact pressure centuries later, but ancient empires faced the same fate. The people stopped seeing the empire as a protector and began seeing it as an enemy. Empires also fell due to military stagnation. While enemies adapted and evolved, many empires relied on outdated tactics and overconfidence. The Roman legions that once dominated battlefields became slow and inflexible. New enemies used faster cavalry, guerrilla tactics, and psychological warfare. The Mongols, for example, shattered empires not just with numbers, but with speed, intelligence, and fear. Another devastating factor was civil war. Nothing destroys an empire faster than fighting itself. When rival factions compete for power, resources are drained, unity collapses, and enemies wait patiently for the right moment to strike. The Roman Empire split into East and West, weakening both. The Islamic caliphates fractured into rival states. The Mongol Empire, despite its unmatched military power, destroyed itself through internal conflict. Environmental factors also played a critical role. Climate change, droughts, and natural disasters weakened agricultural systems, caused famines, and triggered mass migrations. The collapse of the Mayan civilization is closely linked to prolonged droughts that destroyed food supplies. Starving populations rebelled, cities were abandoned, and once great centers of power were swallowed by jungle. Empires depended on stability, and nature offered none. When combined with poor leadership and corruption, environmental stress became the final blow. History proves that no empire falls for a single reason. Collapse is always the result of multiple failures happening at once, feeding into each other until the system breaks completely. The final and perhaps most terrifying reason history's greatest empires fell is that they refused to change. Adaptation is survival, and stagnation is death. Empires that clung to old traditions, rigid hierarchies, and outdated beliefs could not survive a changing world. Technology evolved, enemies learned, and societies transformed. But empires that ignored these changes were left behind. The Ottoman Empire ruled for centuries, but its refusal to modernize its military and administration allowed European powers to surpass it. By the time reform began, it was too late. Empires also collapsed because they believed themselves eternal. This illusion of immortality is one of history's greatest lies. Every empire thought it would last forever. Rome believed its empire was destined by the gods. The Aztecs believed their rituals sustained the universe. The British Empire claimed the sun would never set on it. And yet, all of them fell. Another overlooked reason was loss of identity. As empires absorbed different cultures, languages, and religions, unity weakened. Diversity alone did not destroy empires, but the failure to integrate people under a shared vision did. When citizens no longer felt connected to the empire, loyalty disappeared. In many cases, conquered peoples welcomed invaders as liberators, rather than enemies. Psychological collapse often came before physical defeat. Fear replaced confidence, suspicion replaced trust, and survival replaced ambition. Once an empire reached this stage, collapse was only a matter of time. The final lesson history teaches us is simple but brutal. Power does not guarantee survival. Strength without wisdom leads to destruction. Wealth without justice creates rebellion. Expansion without control invites chaos. And leadership without accountability destroys everything it touches. Empires fell because they forgot why they rose in the first place. They abandoned discipline, ignored warning signs, and silenced truth. And when collapse finally came, it wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, inevitable, and permanent. The ruins we see today are not monuments to greatness, but warnings carved in stone. History is not just a story of the past, it is a mirror, and the same forces that destroyed the greatest empires of history are still alive in the modern world, waiting for the next giant to fall.